Karen is a poet and artist. Her poems can be found in Hesterglock Press's Writing Utopia and are forthcoming in Time Class A's Women's Visual Poetry Anthology. Her poetry has been previously published in 87 Press's Digital Poetics, Data Bleed, and Paratext. She has collaborated with the Sir Denis Mahon Foundation, the Institute of Contemporary Arts, Camden People's Theatre, the Arnold Feeney, and Gallery Eric Dupont. She's also a wonderful human being. And I'm going to hand over to Karen now.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Such a generous introduction, and I just wanted to firstly begin by thanking both Sarah and Luke for this wonderful opportunity to read alongside Harriet today. Harriet's work, who I hugely admire, so really looking forward to getting a glimpse into her new collection as she reads on after my very short reading. So just a little bit of information about the poems I'm going to read first. I think it might help if I just give a little bit of context on that. Each of the poems you're about to hear, they explore this idea of tracing that which has been lost or forgotten or discarded. This sits at the heart of the poems and is explored in light of our relationships with each other and our environments. The poems consist of what I hope are these episodic moments and nostalgic accounts of the everyday, which the language is desperately attempting to trace. Poems such as Sugar are representative of the degradation of both our landscapes and our human relationships. On the page, the language erodes slowly like dissolving sugar cubes. There's this desperate attempt to trace what remains. There's also an emphasis in some of the poems on tracing the effects on our bodies too. So for example, as a result of our more sedentary lifestyles, and this is attempted in the poem Splintered Shins. So these ideas of loss, degradation, and the discarded become the focus of environmental and political concerns as well, as the poems are really drawn out of thoughts around mass consumption and climate emergency. They're my attempt to delve into feelings of emptiness and isolation, which is brought about by contemporary life. And one of the speakers of my poem, in the poem 1505, which I begin with, is looking to escape the metropolis, urban life, for a more rural way of living. The poems are an examination of life today and its effects on our planet, the self, and each other. Well, at least I hope they are. In their despair, the poems perhaps, I think, cry out for a different kind of future. So that was the idea behind writing this cluster. And the images which will accompany the reading, which I'll share in a moment, they're really the beginnings of this experimentation with tracing one's surroundings, as the language itself attempts to trace, to capture and record our internal and external spaces. So I'll conclude with the following definitions of trace. To trace is to find or discover by investigation, to copy, to draw, to outline. A trace is a mark or other indication of the existence or passing of something. So I'm just going to return now to you and share my screen. We'll begin with the very first image. Just going to make that a little bit bigger. Here we go. Okay, thank you. "15:05. The car sped off into the distance and my heart sank. It was certain. I was too late to hitch that ride out into the grassland with its colony of cuckoos. The afternoon's blazing sun made it hard to look ahead, so I turned back and sat on my haunches. Breathe. forlorn blue stem grass, hold, low-spirited poisonous sap, release, silky tuft pods of glum. I clenched my hand into a fist and held it up to a passing bobcat. Take me with you, I cried, out to those erratic rolling terrains where the claggy stems gather in milkweed baths of slop. The bobcat reared its head and flashed its teeth pointed. It leapt closer, mouth to mouth. Savannah, it snarled. It was certain. It sprinted off into the distance and my heart sank. I fell into the road dust and went, cook-oo, ooh, ooh. The sounds of the metropolis beckoned me back. Sugar. We sit inside your car. We wait for the full moon. I watch your sweat beat at this. You pass me a tia to sugar. I think of what ha you mai I chick sa yi drive you me ha om. On the common. Write a letter to George Moore, enter library, architecturally astounding, comment on stillness and sprawl, anticipate life on the commons. Stain, white calla lilies red, take off, decorate red ribbon and green, swing from the garage door, enter. Note down it's Sunday, the district is busy, roll up your jeans, arrive at cemetery, hear the bellmen shiver, watch, bright orbs of light listen to the creek, light up, hold hands, discuss, lackluster, consider, friendship, stare, catch, strip, old clothes, fall asleep, stranger's lap. Splintered shins. I am leaning towards you, coming closer to see the tilt of body yours. As I lean fast, leaning forwards, closer still, breath mine reaches you, lean vertebra, inverse weight, back heels, front toes, lie flat, push. The lean, the slant, body yours, slight spinal flexion, torso yours, supine grip, release, moving further clockwise away and lengthen, lean, stretch. Sacral spine yours, flattening out, posterior ribs expand. Drawing imaginary lines, earlobe mine, balance hip bone, upper thoracic tilted, alignment grows. Shoulder yours away further, stretching, scapula, strong stretch, sketch, central axes mine, growing apart, discompress, tautening collateral ligaments hover, unlocking facet joints, lumbar spine, lifts, crown yours, ankle mine, imaginary lines. Inside that pantry, the body was found 12 days too late, and when lifted, crumbled, hot sandstone remains kept inside mason jars, 1, 3, 5, 5 jars of sandstone body, lifted to new heights, resting on the pantry shelf beside the pickled gooseberries, forgotten, sour, winking discontent, slowly steamed, liquefying, clams open wide. Camillus. Camillus! Did you make it back to the reservoir of sadness? Did you watch it throb and vomit, sugar-coated teardrops, like the ones you'd catch inside striped cones, upside down? You'd always turn yours into a hat. Cones filled with sweet sobs, heaped residue high, ready to swap, gloop, stickers, marbles, hot, sticky, feigned happiness inside the corner shop, beside the high road, in the shadow, the reservoir. Leaving on a full moon. Wolf moon 10:01, a spillage on the kitchen floor. Snow moon 9:02, a traffic jam. Worm moon 9:03, a bout of cold weather. Pink moon 7:04, a missing pet. Flower moon 7:05, a twisted ankle. Strawberry moon 5:06, a delayed flight. Buck moon 5:07, a pair of laddered tights. Sturgeon moon 3:08, a train waylaid. Corn moon 2:09, a neighbour stops by. Harvest moon 1:10, a broken alarm clock. Blue moon 31:10, a stack.
I wrote rather badly, and I was trying to figure out what is throwing me so.
Oh, I'll just do that little bit again. Sturgeon moon 3:08, a train waylaid. Corn moon 2:09, a neighbour stops by. Harvest moon 1:10, a broken alarm clock. Blue moon 31:10, a stack of emails urgent. Beaver moon 30:11, a queue at the magazine stand. Cold moon 29:12, a phone call in the middle of the night. Tracing your mouth. You speak lots of yourself. You forget to stop and ask her of the things she thinks and all, the matter she might like to speak of in the aisles of the video shop. Or on that night out in town, the music too loud, so when you speak lots, you can't hear anything anyway. Your mouth flaps mechanically, you pucker your lips. Occasionally, you forget to ask, but then one day you do, on an unusually hot day in April, but first you speak lots. Then you ask what she would like to do right now. How about bursting through that large pitched roof? Now is the time for modest joy. Now, this is the era of deceptive luxury escapes from here to the cityscape with its high-rise, high seas which talk up, speak of the rain and desire in deluge, in useless words, and suffer. I suffer listening to your runny nose when you withhold your number and when I look inside my letterbox to find a note which reads, "Sorry we missed you." I suffer when I'm put on hold and the only option is to stand on public transport as my new shoes give me blisters and all the satsumas I eat are filled with sour pips. I suffer every time my train is delayed and I run out of milk so there's no porridge today, and instead my phone dies because your plug sockets are too far from your bed. It's cold everywhere and I suffer with cold hands because I forget my gloves in the evening rush and my nails chip as unexpected items make their way into the bagging area. I dip a biscuit and lose almost all of it in my cup of tea. I suffer. I forget my many passwords and suffer when my takeaways take too long to be delivered because the only parking space outside is taken by someone else. I suffer. I suffer when all that I think is left is the last sheet of toilet paper and I lose my phone signal and my breakfast burns. I suffer. It's too cold outside and too warm inside. Suffer. And I suffer when your emails go straight into my junk folder and I can't find the end of the sellotape and my tea bag splits and I suffer from hangnail. It's late and I miss your call and suffer, and I pull a muscle in my neck because the bed linen doesn't match the towel and suffer because I forget my phone charger at home and suffer because you have no hot water. Suffer. I suffer when I get coins instead of notes, and suffer when red wine time stains my teeth, and suffer with laddered tights, and suffer when there's no cue etiquette, and suffer when you leave voicemails of suffering. Person. Jelly's fugitive. Remember from the age of 5 and every year after, your mother hosted these birthday parties for you in your front garden. Long table covered in multiple sheets of green crepe paper, sellotaped together, fading in the sun. We all sat around it, our toes grazing the grass, and she would serve us jelly with a big sickly scoop of angel delight. These days, it's comforting to think of that jelly, and probably for you, there's much consolation in knowing that you're back with the jelly now. Jelly, petrol thickened and smelling of soap. Jelly with its alkali taste, its burnt oils and waste fats. Soap. Remember you liked to watch that soap opera after school on Mondays, the one about a gasoline station in Australia somewhere, Victoria, I think. Anyway, back to remembering you and the solace you found in returning to the jelly now, but this time as a flamethrower, tenacious and tacky like treacle. To know you're out there, fleeting and fiery in transit, quick to disappear into the exploding jelly clouds. And probably for you, there's much relief in that. You're back with the jelly now. Yours, Guerrilla Fighter, for Germano Shailant. Let me be your guerrilla fighter. Let me count the ways that I shake you up, you my milkshake, hues of mint, sugar, ice and cream, fixing banal into me, my wrists jangle, sweet saccharin, heaving up gag-sick market fabric. I wrap you up my legs and feet, and from number 4 skip I wrench. A terracotta pot, unloved and chipped, big enough for you. You are the seed, stuck in the gap of Manita's teeth. I pick you out and heave. Here, hold this banner. Let me be a cog correction. Watch that stamp on your wrist fade. I wade through that itchy grass, the kind that makes your breathing tight, a green system of blocks of earth, cannon, boat, the sea, and puddles reflecting ploughed fields which imitate the real somehow. Let me be a female torso, perhaps, yours against the wall, mythical and sloped. And to end, on the top. If only I knew the true extent of what you're all thinking and feeling, not just here right now, but every day, all day, I would perish. But before my soul puffs, I drown in the spate of a new real future. The new real chokes my imaginary one, flinging my how-to kits and pancake mix into the gutter. Washed up tragedy, well-wadded stupidity, hearing the turf grow above my head. Graved grass, split soil, heartbeat, a squirrel, jaunts to an ear, my ear, buried underground, a bar bomb. I'm on the other side now, the other side of silence, resting. Just going to end that share screen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I don't know why I'm not unmuting myself. Wow, thank you, Karen. That's amazing. Yeah, really beautiful, and weird and strange and funny. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna introduce Harriet next. If anyone's got any questions for either Karen or Harriet, do feel free to put them in the chat box. Luke's keeping an eye on that. Okay, Harriet and cut flowers. Harriet is a poet and academic at Sheffield Hallam, whose books include Gathering Ground, Shearsman 2019, and Field, Shearsman 2016. Harriet was also the editor of the influential anthology of radical landscape poetry, The Ground Aslant, also published by Shearsman. And I don't really think I need to say any of that, because I think everybody knows who Harriet is, and probably a bit like me, certainly the younger people in the room will have been massively influenced by The Ground Aslant. And some of you are even in The Ground Aslant. So anyway, I'll hand over to Harriet now. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Thanks everyone for coming. It's lovely to see so many people here. It is one of the advantages, isn't it, of this Zoom launching. I want to thank the press, Luke and Sarah of Guillemot Press. I'm really happy to be in this happy flock of beautiful books. I want to thank Chloe Bonfield for the illustrations. And in a minute, I'm going to say something about the form of cut flowers, but actually, I think this, if I can get it to catch the light, this front page actually tells you everything you need to know, really. I also want to thank all the people that I've pilfered from, and they are featuring in the notes. I want to mention Rachel Bland-Duplessis. I'm really excited that she's here. I didn't know that she'd make it all the way from America, because I have dedicated the book to her. She's been hugely important to all elements of my creative and academic life. And to me, she sort of embodies everything that's marvellous about the Anglo-American modernist tradition, which I sort of fantasize I'm part of. I don't know if I've been around long enough to be part of, but that's my fantasy. I'm just going to say a tiny thing about the form of cut flowers, because I can't assume that everybody knows it. And I'm just going to hold up the book, because I couldn't face another PowerPoint, and just tell you, people see that? Yeah, there's basically a long line, and then there's a short column and a longer column. And I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read all of them, you'll be relieved to know, but all the poems I'm going to read twice. So I'm going to read across, and then I'm going to read down the short column. It's very useful. I can see people nodding encouragingly, which means they understand what I'm saying, which is good. And there's 4 seasons to this book. So I'm just going to read a few from each season. Spring. Cut flowers, why would they, when it came to it? Lasting longer, long days before dawn sees a fair light. Crows and robins upright on the wall. Look out, learn to travel in deep time. Blood, fish and bone. Find new ventures. Prepare, pass, pray for vegetables. Cut flowers, why would they, when it came to it? Long days, a fair light on the wall. Deep time, new ventures, vegetables. They don't want anything because they haven't got a brain. Pushed wild habitat, drifted long shore in England, currents westward, thousands of years. Ice sheets, seeds in easily erodable particles, soft shingle ridges, dumped. They don't want anything because they haven't got wild habitat in England, thousands of seed particles, dumped. Rhubarb, we take it in us arms. Footwork, fancy footwork, slide-stepping legs, walking between stalks, candles. We don't want new people falling into it or through into spring. Persephone, maybe. Every dark birthday girl, witch divided day. Rhubarb, we take it in us arms. Footwork, fancy stepping legs, stalks, candles, people, into spring, every dark, divided day. This one references Romanian churches in Iași. Buying beeswax candles to burn, threading people passing up and chorally down in warm breath, chanting golden dark, crossing bodies crossed, listening, watching, bowed heads still haloed as brightly burnt, sawn, boiled and falling. Buying beeswax candles to burn, threading chorally chanting bodies, bowed, brightly falling. This poem is for Flas Vale and the Sandhu family who've defended it all these years. Meridian ladder of land, just one footpath coming up against city housing, the Bowers, hearing blue tits, Twitterati lodges, invasive traffic, sycamore, roadies, pioneers, natives, bash 'em all out of teenage birches, maidens' bowers, beat bypass bulldozers. Meridian ladder of land, just one footpath, housing blue tits, traffic, native birches, bulldozers. Grey sward line of bins at junction grazing. Residents only. Gypsy horses, traders in grounds, vans and boxes, bright sheep desire in unshorn mourning. Fine wedding. Face on to suit smart venue, silk-haired commuters. For view, cars make a U-turn, see over. Green sward line of bins at junction, grazing residents only in grounds. Sheep desire fine wedding venue, for view, see over. Summer. Sitting round the fire pit with Alice, who casts the sticks she owns. She thinks she, a plant, owns a field. Sprays wipe out arable flowers, seed edges resist, appears from being buried. Sitting round the fire pit with Alice, who owns a plant, sprays flowers, appears buried. This one's for my friend Maura, who did say, "Let your beard grow." "Let your beard grow," said the lady to her friends. Endless tea mugs, a flutter of milk dugs, a fluster of children, single cell mosses, how do they grow? Chasing, they form complicated patterns on green, stage against grass lawn. "Let your beard grow," said the lady to her friends, a flutter of children. How do they form on green lawn? This one's for Richard Kerridge. It's got a line from his Cold Blood. I think he's here too. Thronging to be excluded in every field, division, gibberish, plantation crop down. There are lots of them, but that was that one. Horizon come down, height changed, depth, darkness, one slingering tread, decreasing circle on imagined earth. Something starts to bite neck. Thronging to be excluded in every field division down. That one changed. Tread earth, neck. This one references the Jewish Museum in Berlin. Something human in the eyes of wooden shuttle walls before the war. Glaze black of lions, bears, rabbits, caught in griffin claws. The full zodiac circle, strong colours all. Pregnant sheep sleep at noon. Clematis crawl, suddenly summer. Something human in the eyes of wooden shuttle glaze. Caught zodiac, pregnant clematis, summer. And this one was written about a visit to Krosnowice in Poland. Now it is a funeral home, cinema, shop, field, granite in cement, in nettles, grasses. Across he crosses old rail tracks, pulling his broken trouser belt up. Something to say? Off to blackbird-bitten, biting woods. Despite all, begin to form new months. Now it is a funeral home, cinema, shop. Field, grasses, rail tracks. Belt up, blackbird, despite months. Autumn. This references Roscoe. They got darker than he meant them to, bleeding into body, blurring into portal, light lost, full maybe, or out of all four seasons together. Art scene. People can stand anything these days. More than cube, depth, frame, or field could interiorize, internalize. They got darker than he meant them to, bleeding portal out of art scene. These days, frame or internalize. This one references an advert for alternative therapies. Entering York City gates is discouraged. Stone grey curves, arches onto estate. Police blue lights up, flash up, pigeon lamp street. Black rook shines on chestnut. Pain, anxiety, fertility, well-being, stress, advertised. Entering York City gates is discouraged. Stone grey estate. Flash up, black rook. Pain, well advertised. That's the trouble with you, not a person. So much stronger, make to wait, subdue, adrenaline, up, back, in, stop, stay, turn. I am ready, sky, silhouettes, stationary song in tree tunnel, here felling up and down, volume of fear. That's the trouble with you, not a person so much, subdued, in, stop, sky song, felling fear. All sailing tomorrow is in doubt. Saharan winds caught up Iberian dust. He took the money in and then he passed it on again and on. Humans, they never hear eucalyptus, pine, the first fire's fight ending. All sailing tomorrow is in doubt. Saharan, Iberian, in and on again, never the ending. Winter. We like the beginning best, who doesn't? Then a bit down heart, the electrical stuff. I don't know what they do, but nothing happens to them. Side rain windows, slice walls, snow on east sides. Most common direction, more common weather than one. We like the beginning best, who doesn't? Then a bit down, I don't know nothing. Windows, sides, more than one. Three distant things that look like sheep but don't move. Forgotten things. Grey dawn, mild December, lyric skin, cloud passing moon shows raw fields and solstice. A moment. How many nights are we staying? When luck turns, never enough. Three distant things that look like sheep but don't. Grey dawn, lyric skin shows a moment staying enough. Everything is made much too possible. Never better less or nothing, anything but a blunt pencil. Too sulky, not in the mood. Immobile to take moving calls, to take on unpleasant voices of people. The people brought us here. Everything is made much too possible. Never anything too sulky, immobile, to take on people, us here. Did history get done? It did not, thump box. A kid opening a car door, thump box, moved into a wall, gathering more matter from matter, budding up, around, out of places. When you grow older, you will move between places, out of root darkness, easier. Lowly land, we lost years of it in this country. When all came sliding, side fall, in all quiet side, before spring dives, too early, draws out dawn, grows colder, enlightens earlier. Every day, too late for address, redress, some kind of season. Lowly land, we lost years of it in this country, when all came, all quiet side, too early, grows colder, every day, redress, season. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen and Harriet. Now's the time, if you have any questions, to place them in the chat. We've had lots and lots of lovely comments, which I've been trying to keep up with, and I'm surrounded by pieces of scraps of paper where I've been trying to write them down as they come in. So yeah, please write them down now if you have any. Oh, lots and lots of comments coming in, lots of comments. Alison Hallett, I wonder how Harriet decided which words to put where, how to compose the structure she worked with. And connected to that, Harriet, like, I just wondered if you could say a bit more about the form itself, where it came from. I was just looking what the phrase you used here, which is writing a short poem forever. So why is it sort of appealed to you, and why is it taking you so much?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a sort of play with Rachel's writing a long poem forever, which was about her books of drafts, which she published for many years, which there are many. And I want to do the same with this form because it's just somehow kind of done something for me. I just invented it by playing around with materials. So basically I had lots of material I didn't know what to do with, and it wasn't place-based landscape writing, which is the other thing I do a lot of, as everybody knows. So I just played around with it, and then eventually that form appeared, and then I used it more and more, and now I find it quite difficult to write anything else, actually. So I mean, it was simply to allow different things to coexist in one quite tight, small form. I think that's really what I wanted, and I wanted it to contain all the ambivalence that we feel all the time about everything around us. So it just became a sort of catch-all form. So I suppose it's almost like a sort of journal in a funny sort of way.
And we've got a few more coming in now. Jonathan Skinner, who also wrote really nice comments.
Oh, I hope you're going to save all these comments.
Oh yes, I will. I'll send them all. I'll send them all over to you. Asking about the connection between the form and the title. Cut Flowers.
Cut Flowers. Yeah, the first one I wrote was Cut Flowers, the first poem I read today. I think I was thinking of the lyric tradition and of that association of the lyric tradition, and particularly women's poetry, with flowers, but also with the idea of sort of cutting through language and exposing it in all its kind of failings and the way it doesn't really work, particularly when you put it in a form like this and the words just keep changing in terms of what they mean. So it seemed appropriate. It also does reference the environmental themes, which obviously I'm a little bit obsessed with, and in this collection and everything else I write, in the sense that, you know, cut flowers, we love them, they're beautiful, but why do we do that? You know, why do we cut flowers? Why do we transport them across the world? So it's kind of doing it, it's trying to do two things at once, like all titles are, I think, maybe.
Kathy Hopewell has asked, are you including instructions to the reader to read across then down?
Hey, Kathy. No. No, I'm not actually. I mean, you can read them three ways, or in fact, you can just drift around amongst them. You know, I mean, those two, I thought if I read each one three ways, then really we'd never get through the reading, or I'd have to read hardly any of them. But those two ways that I read tend to work better. I mean, some of them work better with one form than another. So they are really for people just to play around with. And they are trying to get away from just, you know, reading things in a linear way. So no instructions, Kathy. You'd approve of that.
Can I also ask, so there's a question from Mark Leahy to Harriet about do you want to say anything about the drawings? But I also wondered if we could start, if we're looking at text and images, if we could ask Karen similarly what about the images in Karen's pieces that Sarah pointed out looked like Acemic writing, and what could Karen talk to them a little bit?
Yes, of course. So really it ties into the whole concept of tracing and playing around with tracing one's environment. So things that I can see that form the object that each of those poems is based on and is written about. Not necessarily based on, it's normally a little bit of inspiration, if you like, or a point of focus in the poem. But that relationship between the object and then writing around the object or through the object does get taken to a bit more of an extreme, which probably doesn't come across in the pictures, and I've not explained it. But for example, with the sugar cubes are actually used after I've written the poem I put my paper in a like a bowl, and then I drop in sugar cubes and actually dissolve the cubes, and then we notice that there's some degradation of the text and the paper as well, and then whatever remains, I then do a series of traces and drawing around, trying to preserve what remains of this interaction between the object and the text, and the two coming together. So I'm really thinking of tracing as a form of recording or remembering, but also misremembering, and allowing for those kinds of mistakes and errors that come into play through that.
Karen, you mentioned some of the poems there. Maybe I thought I might highlight some of the comments you had, which will be way up the top now, which so Ruth especially liked the Sugar Lump poems and the Jelly poems. We had compelling reading from Susie Campbell, who read in our last reading. Caroline Harris said it was amazing. I've written the name down oddly here. Caroline Wardby, I think it was, enjoyed especially the Moon poems. Anna also said the Corner Shop and Moon poems are particularly lovely. Had lots and lots of nice comments. It's worth having a read, having a look up. Harriet, did you want to say something about the image as well, from Mark Leahy?
Gosh, I mean, I didn't. It's a shame that Chloe's not here. I can't really speak to the images, to be honest. I mean, I because it's a different experience for me having an illustrator, you know, illustrate the book after you've written it. It's completely different from working with someone visually. But I mean, I think they're really interesting, you know, and they're a response to the text. Yeah.
There is a little essay on Chloe's process, which is on our journal, because Chloe's worked with us before on a double pamphlet by Susanna V. Evans, which explains sort of what she does, and it's a similar sort of process she went through with this one. Let's have a look. Clarissa Butler said, Harriet, visually they also look to me like washing on a line, moving.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the way they look. I like that phrase. That's a great idea. That's very Clarissa.
Susie Campbell's asked, the words on the right-hand side are discarded after their first reading. Is that significant?
That's a good. It's a good question. I mean, I did play around with these a lot, and at one point I did try and make them work in all poems work in all three ways, so that I could read, you know, just the right hand column. But in fact, just the left hand column I find more interesting. So yeah, I suppose for this reading that was quite a deliberate policy. But now I feel mean. Now you said I've discarded them and thrown them away. Hadn't thought of it like that.
We've got one here from Lucy Burnett. I think there's a question. I've been lucky to have read the entire sequence, and for me, part of the power of the work was in the building and ebbing of words, images, meaning, doubling back. For me, it's the most obliquely narrative of your works, lyric narrative. How did you even begin to decide what to read tonight and in what order? And do you agree that it's a sequence, not individual poems? P.S. I disagree about it being possible to read in different orders. For me, it's very sequential in an oblique way.
Thank you, Lucy, for that small lesson. How do I say? Yeah, yes, it is sequential. You do read them in the order they're in. I just meant you could read within each poem. You could play around with the different orders. Yeah. I tried to get a flavour of the different kinds of poems that there are. Basically, that's what I did for this evening. And I wanted to read from each season, and I wanted to read the ones that reference seasons, just to kind of give a sort of thread. But at other readings that I've done from the cut flowers, I have kind of taken, you can kind of take a strand, you know, a more personal strand, or a traveling strand, or a more environmental strand, or a strand that's just about playing with language and form and sound. And I've done that in other readings, some of which do lurk on the web, but as I never look back at them, because I can't face watching myself read, I don't know whether they came off. But for instance, I did more of a sort of environmental reading for the Tears of the Fence Festival, because I was in the sort of environmental panel for that. So you can kind of take threads through, I guess, but it has got a very seasonal quality to it. And I am working on the next 50. In fact, I've got about 35 of them, because they're now coming quite thick and fast. And that I've also put into a structure of 4 parts. It's not the seasons, but again, I have to try and create a structure to work within.
Karen, there's a question for you from Matthew Griffiths. I wondered whether the repetitions in Karen's poems, Jelly, the increasingly erratic clock time, offer a way of revisiting structure from different perspectives, similar to the way Harriet's do.
Yeah, it's a great question. I really do wonder about that, because the writing of those poems, especially the ones that were around edible items, jelly, food, sugar cubes, food, there was the performance of actually making the jelly, the performance of the dissolving sugar cubes, and this pressure on time. So there's a clock timer as well, before I even begin writing the work. So the performance really structures, I think, the pace and that patterning of language that comes through as I then go on and sit to write and collate both the physical fragments and the food that I'm left with, but also me from memory trying to trace and document the process that or the performance that I've just undergone as well. So I think that does come into play when thinking about structuring the writing of my work, because it, like I said earlier, it begins with the objects or the making of something, and then trying to trace that through language. Yes, I hope that answers that.
While you're there, Karen, there's also a nice one about performance from Camilla Nelson. Karen, I was really interested in your actions of leaning in the poem you read about reading and body structure. How do your physical actions relate to the drawings and the text? Can you say a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so because we were only seeing sort of 2 elements of it. Well, you're not seeing the text, but you're seeing the visual elements, but they form very much part of the performance, and using the body as a way to sort of mimic this idea of the tracing line. So in the Splintered Shins, for example, me moving and leaning, which I'm glad you managed to see on the screen, is me trying to trace the line that I've drawn on the page, which is part of a bigger picture actually. So that was just a small sort of close-up of it, but it's actually of a body that is leaning, and all labelling of the sort of spine and all the elements of the spine. So I think for me, in the performance, embodying the movement and the gestures and those traces, physical traces, is a really imperative, I would say, to sort of understanding the project as a whole.
I thought it was great, actually, Karen, the way you managed to do that, even in a little sort of square version of yourself on screen, that you managed to get that embodied quality into the poems, which I really enjoyed. I meant to say that when I started, but I was too caught up with my own reading. But yeah, really enjoyed it.
That was decided at last minute. So I decided I was just going to read it with the image up, but then it felt wrong not to move. I thought I had to lean into it as you voice those words. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that came across.
There's one, I think possibly the last question. We'll see if anything else comes in for Harriet. Suggested from Elżbieta for suggesting some other ways of structuring. I think, Harriet, you spoke of 4 seasons. What about parts of the world, countries, and its logic? Thinking of the Polish poem, but also Berlin.
Yeah, that's another way you could read these. But the new collection that I'm doing can't be structured like that, because I haven't been anywhere like everybody else, and it's actually been quite strange. Because in fact, quite a lot of these poems are ekphrastic as well. You know, there's been a lot of kind of gallery visits and things that are fed into them, and as well as travel. And actually, the next set are quite different and very sort of local in that sense. But I think that is a great idea, Ella. I mean, since I'm going to carry on writing them forever, I can do that when we're all out of lockdown and traveling again.
I think that's all of the questions. Thank you. Just to say once again, thank you very much to Karen Sandhu and Harriet Tarlo for coming and reading tonight and for answering our questions. There will be a recording going online on YouTube, the Guillemot Press YouTube channel at some point when Wi-Fi connections and time allow, as I think I explained in the last one. Also, something that's just we only just became aware of is that next week is Guillemot Press's 5th anniversary. It's our first book came out on March the 11th. We're not sure what we're going to do for it yet, but we'll try and think of something, and we'll let people know as soon as we have some ideas. So again, thank you very much for coming. We almost maxed out at our 100 limit tonight. We had 98, I think, at the top. Lovely to see you all. Thank you all, and hopefully see you again at the next one.